Welcome back to A Better Choice Homestead, where on this channel we focus on food, growing it, preparing it, and preserving it. On Fridays, I do a freeze-dry Friday video where it's mostly freeze-drying, sometimes dehydrating. On Sundays, I drop a video that could be anything from seed starting to cultivating out in the garden, harvesting, and then preserving in different ways. And on Tuesdays, I do a Cook With Me video, and this is Tuesday, so welcome to Tasty Tuesday. Today, I am going to be making a relatively easy recipe. I got a lot going on down here, but it's gonna be quite simple, I promise you. It's going to be turmeric chicken on a sourdough starter flatbread. So we're going to be making good use of our sourdough starter, which is also going to be making it a healthier version of the meal. So let me get you pointed down and let's get cooking. I need some Greek yogurt. You can use plain yogurt, and I don't have any fresh, but I do have a whole bunch freeze-dried. So we're going to get this reconstituted. That's going to be step number one. If you already have yogurt on hand, then you would obviously skip this step. In order to use freeze-dried yogurt, we need to reconstitute it. This is one of those that we're not just rehydrating, we're reconstituting. We're going to have to get this back into a semi-liquid form where consistency matters. So I am going to be putting in to a pint-size wide mouth mason jar half a cup of this plain yogurt. I'm not going to use all of it for the recipe. The recipe only calls for a third of a cup. So 1/2 cup of the freeze-dried yogurt powder to 2/3 cup of water. And then I am going to be using my immersion blender to get this blended up. And that's just going to help get all of those little tiny powder crystals, if you will, melded back together into a semi-liquid form. When I freeze-dried the yogurt, I ran it through the food processor after it came off of the freeze dryer trays. So it is very, very fine, and we don't want it to be gritty in our food. So I am mixing this up, and then I'm going to pop this in the refrigerator for about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, now that our yogurt is reconstituting, we're going to move on to the chicken. I need to cut that up. I've got a cutting board on top of my cutting board. I don't like to do raw meat on this cutting board since it stays on my counter and it's so big, it's hard to get into the sink to clean. So I'm going to chop up the chicken on this cutting board. This is 1.5 pounds of organic, boneless, skinless chicken thighs. The recipe only calls for 1 pound, but this is 1.5 pounds. I'm probably going to cut it all up, and I'm going to prepare it for this, even though I may not use it for this. So let's get this open and cut up. I'm going to be cutting these pieces just into some thin strips. They're probably 1/4 inch thick. And if you don't like dark meat, you can certainly make this recipe with white meat. But the dark meat, you know, it's juicier than white meat is. It has a little bit more flavor, and it definitely has a higher fat content. Chicken thighs are loaded with protein. Just 3 ounces of chicken provides you with 20 grams of protein, 9 grams of fat, 18 if you leave the skin on. It has about 223 milligrams of potassium in that serving, as well as some selenium, some zinc, some B12, and some iron. Chicken is a complete protein. It contains all 9 essential amino acids that we need in our bodies that our bodies don't make. And chicken also contains tryptophan, which raises levels of serotonin in your brain, making us feel better. It's a neurochemical, so chicken just makes us feel good. Plus, it is a very budget-friendly protein source. All right, we're ready to move on to the next step. With our chicken cut up, I'm going to transfer it into a bowl. I've got my knife cleaned up as well. And I'm going to add some spices in here. So I'm going to add, the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. I'm going to do a little bit more than that since we have half over as much of the chicken as we need. So I'm going to do about 2.5 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. 1 teaspoon of turmeric. And turmeric is an excellent spice to add to your food. It has really good anti-inflammatory properties. It is rich in phytonutrients that protect the body from free radicals and cell damage that can lead to chronic health issues or even disease. It's really good for arthritis protection, anxiety, relieving muscle soreness, and even kidney health. However, our bodies cannot utilize all the amazing properties of turmeric because they're not organically bioavailable to us. In order for us to be able to use the power that is in that spice, we need to add some pepper. So I'm going to add, that's a lot. I'm going to add some pepper in here as well. And then I am just going to get that mixed up. And I need about a tablespoon of olive oil over the meat. I'm going for a little extra because there's more chicken in here than the recipe calls for. And I'm mixing this up until I don't see any, plain gritty spice in here. We want it all to be blended onto the meat with the olive oil. That looks great. I'm going to set this aside. Next, I need to mix up a little vinegar sauce here. So I'm going to put 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. Red wine vinegar is a powerhouse of nutrition for you. It contains acetic acid and the polyphenols. The acetic acid helps control your blood sugar levels. It actually helps slow down the digestion of carbs in your body so your blood doesn't get flooded with the sugar from carbs. The polyphenols are antioxidants, and vinegar also acts as an antibacterial in your body. And then this recipe calls for some red fresh jalapenos. I don't have any, so I'm actually going to be using some cowboy candy that I canned a couple of years ago. We still have quite a bit of this left. My knife has been cleaned from the chicken, so I'm just going to pop those on my board. And I don't know how to equate this to 2 jalapenos, but that looks like a good amount to me. I'm going to chop these up. Now, if these were fresh jalapenos, whether they're red or they're green, the vinegar would do a quick pickle on them. These are already pickled because they were canned in a sweet vinegar sauce, but that's okay. We're still going to follow the recipe as it's written. And then I am just going to mix this up. Now I'm going to set this aside, and I'm going to turn my cast iron skillet here onto a medium-high heat. That's not going to take but a minute to get hot, and then we are going to start cooking this chicken. I'm going to add about a tablespoon or so of olive oil to the pan. And I'm going to just drop that chicken right on in. Now we're not trying to brown this, so crowding the pan doesn't necessarily matter. I just want to make sure that I get it cooked through. So I really don't want pieces overlapping in full. But we'll be mixing this up as we cook. Okay, everything is in the pan. So what I need to do now, because if you've been to my channel before, you know I do a lot of freeze-dried food, and that means I don't have to run to the grocery store, but maybe once or twice a month at most. So this recipe calls for spinach, and I do not have any fresh spinach. What I do have is some broccoli greens from last year's garden. After you harvest the broccoli, I actually harvest the greens, even sometimes before the broccoli is ready. I do that also with Brussels sprouts. And these make a wonderful spinach substitute. So I am going to go ahead and get these into some water to start rehydrating so that they're ready as soon as we're ready for them in the dish. I got another bowl here. I'm just going to go ahead and dump probably about half of what I have in here. And this is all I have left. Actually, it might not be. I probably have some in Mylar bags. That's all I have left in my kitchen. And I am just going to cover that with some water from the tap. When I freeze dried these, first I blanched them. And then I kind of squeezed them to get the water out. So they're kind of in a bunch in here. So I'm going to let them sit for a few minutes, and then I'll be able to kind of separate them, and we'll be able to use them in the dish. Next, we need some garlic. We need about a clove, but it will depend on the size. So let me open this up and see what we've got. That's 2. I'm gonna go with 1 more. We like garlic. The one thing I don't like about garlic that most people don't like about garlic is having to peel it. If you've been here for a minute, you know that I use a garlic roller. It makes it so easy. You put the garlic in the little clove inside the tube, put the tube on your surface, and you put the garlic, your hand where you can feel the garlic in the palm of your hand, and then you just roll. Then your jackets will just fall right off. It's that easy. Now I need to get the chicken stirred up in here. So I'm just gonna flip these. And I gotta tell you, I have never cooked chicken with pumpkin pie spice before. This recipe is new to me. It sounded different, and I am always up for trying something different. And I'm liking the way this smells. It's got a lovely aroma. That's almost done. I'm gonna take my chicken bowl over to the sink, get it washed out so I can put the chicken back in here because I'm gonna need this pan for the bread. All right, that chicken is done. This smells incredible. The turmeric adds, and the pumpkin pie spice, they're adding an amazing color on here. Oh, just smells so good. All right, I'm going to get the heat turned off. And now I need to get that bread going. The pan is nice and hot, and my oven is on 400 degrees. So the oven is preheated, and I'm actually going to leave what's in the pan in the pan. Here is my sourdough starter. I'll have a short coming out on this soon, but this was revived today from a little bit of starter with a whole lot of hooch on top to a beautiful and bubbly, ready to use starter maybe an hour ago. So don't throw away your starter just because it has some liquid on, off-colored liquid on top. So I am just going to liberally pour this into the pan. I don't want it too thick. And I want to be able to spread that around. I'm not necessarily worried about going up the sides as if I was making a sourdough starter pizza crust, because this is more like a flatbread. I'm loving the color. I am loving the color. I gotta show you this color. Look how fun that looks. There looks like so much flavor in there. All right, I'm gonna get this in the 400-degree oven, and it's gonna be in there for 10 minutes. All right, I need to get this garlic chopped up. Now, garlic is also a really good ingredient to use in your meals. It helps regulate your blood pressure and your blood sugar levels. It boosts your immune system. It helps prevent heart disease. It acts as a detoxification in your body. It's an anti-inflammatory. It helps prevent and treat colds. It increases your bone health. It decreases your cholesterol, and it has antioxidant properties as well, so it's anti-cancer. Eat your garlic. All right, I've got another little cast iron here. I'm going to get that nice and hot as I drain the liquid off of this fully rehydrated bowl of greens. All right, I've got the greens drained, and I'm just I squeezed them. I squeezed all the water out of them, so I'm just kind of fluffing them back up. And side note, if I was making this with spinach, which is what the recipe calls for, my son probably wouldn't eat it because he doesn't think that he likes spinach. But when I use broccoli greens, I tell him that they're broccoli greens, and he's like, oh, okay, I like broccoli, so yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, now we're going to add a little olive oil to this pan. And I'm going to drop in the garlic. And then the greens. I'm just going to give that a stir. And really, we're just cooking this long enough to get the garlic fragrant, because the greens, they were blanched before I freeze-dried them, so they don't really need to cook. They just need to get heated up, and we'll do that as we get the garlic going. All right, let me now bring out, my workspace is getting smaller and smaller with all this stuff, but let me bring out the yogurt that we reconstituted. I've got a clean bowl here, and this calls for 1/3 of a cup of the yogurt. I'm going to do, again, just a little bit more than that because we have more going on with our chicken than the recipe calls for. Let me stir this up. So I'll grab 1/3 of a cup out of here. And then just a little bit more. And to this, I am going to add the juice of half a lemon. I've got a little juicer here. I've got a lemon. I'm going to cut that in half. And keep stirring this. I don't want the garlic to burn. That looks good, so I'm actually going to turn that off. That's ready. There we go. That's about 2 tablespoons. And get all the seeds off that it caught. Give that a good mix. And now I'm going to add just a little pinch of salt. It's the only salt so far we've added to the dish, just a little pinch. And then a little bit of pepper as well. Get that stirred together. All right, we got a couple minutes before the sourdough starter flatbread is ready, so I'm going to get this cleared up a little bit, and I'll be right back. Okay, the timer went off for the sourdough flatbread. It's been in the oven for exactly 10 minutes. I'm going to pull it out. I need 2 hands for this. Look how beautiful that looks. All right, so I am just going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil over the top of this. I'm going to put some chicken on it. This looks amazing. We knew we'd have some chicken left over, and that's okay because this smells amazing. That is so good. It's so different. It's really tasty. Okay, I'm going to stick this back in the oven under the broiler for just about 3 minutes. And that's really just to heat the chicken back through and to kind of finish off the top of the flatbread. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, since I used the pan that we cooked the chicken in for the bread and all the drippings were in there, I'm going to pour the sauce that's in here over these broccoli greens. And I'm just going to give that a good mix. And again, if you've been here for a minute, you know that I reuse tools as long as they're safe. There's no raw chicken or anything on it, so that I have less to wash when I'm done cooking. Perfect. All right, it's been 3 minutes. The flatbread with the chicken should be completely done. Let's pull that out of the oven. Let me get a trivet down first. Turn the oven off. Oh, I cannot express to you how wonderful this smells. It's incredible. All right, so now we're going to top it with our remaining ingredients. So we've got the broccoli greens here, and I'm just going to, break them apart and put them over the top. I guess I could use a utensil. Now I'm going to spoon out those candied jalapenos, the cowboy candy. And as I was thinking about this, I thought I probably didn't need to soak it in the vinegar since they were already pickled, but I'm kind of glad I did, because if you've had cowboy candy, you know it's really sweet, and I'm hoping that that vinegar drew off just a little bit of that sweetness. And next I am going to spoon this yogurt sauce over the top. And let me tell you, that yogurt, the ratio with the freeze-dried yogurt to water, it came out the absolute right consistency. I don't need all of this sauce because remember, I made extra. So I might just toss the extra chicken in this sauce and have that for lunch tomorrow. The last step is to finish this off with a little cilantro. And this is also freeze-dried. So I need my hands dry. Let me dry my hands so it doesn't stick to my hands. All I'm going to do with this is put it in the palm of my hand and crush it up and let it just fall onto the dish. If you don't like cilantro, you can leave it off. You can use parsley instead. This looks amazing. Let me bring you down so you can see what we've got here. This looks incredible. I've never made anything quite like this, and I am telling you, I cannot wait to try this. So let's get it plated up. Well, here we are, and I have to admit that this is no longer hot. I took a phone call after I turned off my video because my phone had been blowing up, and it was my niece, and she was plant shopping in Home Depot. She lives out of state, and she wants to start a garden, and she had all these questions, and I wanted to support that. So I just spent an hour and a half on the phone with her, and I'm now the last person to eat. But let's give this a try. That's actually really good. That is a really, really tasty flatbread. The pumpkin spice in here adds something completely different than I've ever had on chicken before. Next time I make this, I'm going to add just a little bit more garlic. Sorry, I had something caught in my throat. Just a little bit more garlic for a little bit of extra zing. I might even put a little bit of salt, maybe on top of the flatbread before I put the chicken on it, because it doesn't have much of a salt flavor at all, and I like salt. But otherwise, this is actually really good. It has a little bit of tang from the sourdough. I can taste the turmeric as well. And that candied jalapeno, the vinegar did pull out a lot of the sweetness, but it does have that little bit of heat that gets you at the back of your throat. It is actually quite delicious. That yogurt sauce is amazing. This is a really, really good light dinner, full of nutrition, to support your body and your overall health. So another start to serve in 30 minutes. I hope you give this a try. If you'd like the recipe, please leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for joining me here in my kitchen again. My name is Kelly. You're at A Better Choice Homestead, and I hope you come back and visit again soon.